about facilities and grounds, you want to talk about public works, call your committee meetings. The village manager, the village attorney, nor the mayor calls those meetings, nor do we have anything to do with those agendas. You put your agenda to the clerk. Committee this entire year. That's not on either three of us. So honestly, if you were directed by staff to contact your only employee in this form of government, which is the village manager, then you contact your only employee in this form of government, which is the village manager, which you opted not to. So if it said, call me, email me, text me, drop by, and you opted not to do that, that's on you. If you opted not to call your committee meetings, that's on you. What we can say is, realistically, if you want to take the time to go over the agenda of the budget at this meeting, and then we come back in our meeting in May to vote on the budget, then let's do that. But realistically, yes, there's a draft budget in the clerk's office. Yes, there are committee meetings that trustees are responsible for to hold to discuss the budget. You've been on the board for 10 years now. So if there was something specific you wanted added to the budget, removed from the budget, or amended to the budget, it doesn't take until the night of the budget to do that. That's all I got to say.
Mayor, and I appreciate your commentary, but I just requested only one thing, and I'm just trying to make one point, that we are to conduct business on behalf of the residents of the village of Maywood, giving us less than 24 hours, regardless if the manager was called, if he wasn't called. As the village manager, right? And village managers know this, that it's weeks ago. And I just, for me, the response is, this is not about a committee. This is not about when committees are meeting. This is about when this budget was prepared, that we should have received a first draft of it and had conversations on it as a collective, and then came back to approve it, and not to just, less than 24 hours, review it, make recommendations. It makes no sense.
So
it makes
Trustee,
no sense at all.
in the last few different months, February, March, April, where the actual agenda that says when the fiscal year budget is going to be on the board packet to be approved. At what point in time, if you're not calling your committee meetings, and if you're not communicating with your only employee, because you're opting not to and you're selecting not to, if you see it on the agenda and you don't say, where's the draft copy of the budget? If you're not calling your committee meetings to request the draft copy of the budget, and you're not reaching out to your only employee in this form of government to request a draft of the budget or a copy of the budget, but it is made available because it's been in the board packet of the schedule, who does that go to as a responsible party? I mean, I could even say, if you were willing to say, I'll take some brunt of it, I'll give it to staff as a brunt of it, but can we make sure this doesn't happen again? But to try to scold someone, Trustee,
Mayor?
I'm just saying, the schedule for the budget has been on multiple board packets. And even when you reached out to a staff member, they asked you to reach out to the village manager, which you did not.
William, did you have something to say?
Put out, it wasn't automatically sent to everyone. It sounds like the question that he's asking. And I guess he's asking, going forward, can this be the practice that happens going forward?
Sure, I'd welcome that. And I'd welcome anybody that wanted to put their input on it. I want to hear about it. I know Director Sancho would like to hear about it, just like you heard from the directors. I even know people on this board have called me and talked to me about it, or sent
just to wrap up the bid waiver thing, so future practice, let's just be clear. So bid waiver is something that we shouldn't practice just because we have a relationship with the vendor. Actually, as a matter of fact, that's why it exists, is to ensure that as we're creating relationships, that we're not just catering to one vendor, because this is not our own business, this is public resources. So we have to verify that we are getting the best dollar amount. So let's make sure, and maybe we can add a memo, or I like to request adding a memo. If we are going to do a bid waiver, it needs to be an emergency. One of the things that I would want to, we don't have to do now, it sounds like, I was under the impression we needed to vote on this budget at this meeting. If we, it sounds like the mayor proposed something else. I think we do need to vote on it, if I'm not mistaken. The attorney is agreeing with me. So I do want to ask a few questions that are budget related, because I have actually asked some questions off the record, well, not off yet, with to the village manager and to the village, and to the director of finance. Just to be clear, I also said that I were being until we figure out a process. But just to be transparent, our job is the budget. So you can assume that we want to know about it right away, because that's our primary job. And our primary job is to manage you. So just so we're clear, that should be an assumption. Like, don't assume that we need to ask you for that. That's a standard thing. And so, yeah, so typically, whether or not it's a finance committee meeting, you want to have one meeting, typically it's like as a committee as a whole, to discuss it, so we can make adjustments, and so the directors can actually present it in front of the community, because they take ownership of it. So to the degree in which the finance committee did not have a role, I was pretty transparent about that a few meetings ago. I was not going to meet, because my recommendations, and Antonio Sanchez, he's been here. I think he knew that. Director Satchel knew that. But I have been following up. I actually put out an update to our fiscal, update on our fiscal year 2022, 2023. I'm gonna ask a few of them. So the first question is the status of the audit. The second question is that I actually personally was Connor Heights Park. So you told me that there's going to be a capital project and so I just want to make sure that it's identified in the budget. I'm sorry, I'm going to work with him, because now, since we've gotten past this form of government thing, there's a heightened focus on the village manager role. So I just want to make sure that you understand. So the Connor Heights Park project, including the Dock Rivers basketball court, is going to be starting this fiscal year, starting in May. And that capital project, I want you to be able to explain to the community what that's going to explain in the timeline. That's something that I actually have been talking about. I want to make sure I can lead the way in terms of what the expectations are. So that's
And just let me, Trustee Jones.
Village manager, can you ask one? There is a whole public hearing of the budget in tonight's meeting.
okay.
So we will recess at a certain point and go into the public hearing about the budget. The other piece.
What transparency isn't
You're talking about the budget.
transparency is not about someone asking you the information. Transparency is about delivering that information to the residents in a clear and a layman's terms manner. This budget has not been available. It's been in the clerk office as a draft, and I would like to know when this was final, because it was not final months ago. Stop it.
So would you like
Stop.
to recess to go and?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm
Let's
like,
do it.
because we're not even at the.
Okay, let's do it. I mean, we can take it right here and let's get to the budget.
And Mayor,
So if you guys
to your point,
say that again, yeah, go ahead.
to your point that you just made earlier, I totally concur with you in that regard, as it relates to, and I know Trustee Jones just made a statement in regards to the standing. The village will be in good standing, because the conversation in which we're having, this is just for the village manager, not for you, but the conversation in which we're having this evening as it relates to all these budget-related questions and concerns, normally these concerns would have been addressed at a previous meeting, or if this budget was sent out to the board of the collective, and then we could have had those concerns addressed earlier on in a better fashion. And so that's all I'm saying as it relates to, I agree with you as it relates to table, and we can table the budget approval until next week, which will give us more time to be able to really review it and dive into it versus
Discuss the actual budget, and then we just not vote on the budget?
correct. Yeah, I'll agree with
I
that.
need a motion to.
I'll motion to take the mayor's recommendations.
So, we have a motion to recess to public hearing to discuss the fiscal year 2025 budget, fiscal year 2026 annual budget, motion by trustee Brandon, second by trustee Jones. Please call the roll.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Trustee Sanchez. Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Lightfoot. Trustee Peppers. Trustee Brandon.
Aye.
Mayor Booker.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, so we are going into budget public hearing at 7:46 p.m. Please call the roll.
Trustee Williams.
Here.
Trustee Sanchez.
Here.
Trustee Jones.
Oh, here, sorry.
Trustee Lightfoot. Trustee Peppers. Trustee Brandon.
Here.
Mayor Booker.
Year 2025-2026 operating budget, May 1st, 2025 through April 30th, 2026 by village manager and finance director.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, what I have before you is the presentation of the budget that we've been speaking about. I do want to start off by saying that, the budget is set by the tax levy. As we all know, the tax levy has not increased. And so the dollars that we're working with are what we expect them to be because there had not been an increase. When you look at the total budget of $65 million, it includes several different funds. And the main day-to-day operating fund is our general fund. And if you look at where we were last year, actually this current year, and so what we're proposing for the next year, there's an increase of $1.6 million, but 1.3 of that was due to the police pension and the fire pension. Police pension was $950,000, and the fire pension was an additional $384,000. We have some new revenue from the casino, video gaming, cannabis, and a little bit more in our permits. So this budget is pretty flat. There isn't anything that's surprising or alarming because we are working within the same monies that we have over the last 4 years. And so here on this slide, it just kind of breaks down each of the funds that we operate with and, from the current fiscal year, because it hasn't ended yet, right? That ends April 30th, and so what we're proposing on May 1st. And again, you'll note that I'm saying proposing, I'm not taking the liberty to say that this will be an approved budget. It is what we're proposing. So here just kind of goes over the general fund, giving an example. So as I mentioned, the difference is 1.6, but truly it's only $300,000. Again, this is just to remind you of all the departments that work within this general fund. And again, there will be a couple of new positions that have been proposed, and they're in Public Works and Code. I'm sure everyone has had an opportunity to see the difference in the town. And so there's proposing a superintendent position in both Public Works and Code, and an additional laborer. So this is an analysis of each of the departments that are in the general fund, and it shows the difference and there was a percent change there, and as you know, there was a change in the salary for the trustees, the mayor, the clerk, and the treasurer. So it's a small increase but that's what that results in. In code, again, there was a small increase, and then public works, you'll see, was the largest increase. And this is because what we're doing to try to be more fiscally responsible is that we put all of our building maintenance for each of the buildings throughout the village under public works, as well as vehicle maintenance and fuel. So, I know there's a little bit of a conversation about waiving of the bids, and so we have been trying to be more fiscal responsible, and so public works will be managing that had an increase of 10% or greater. So community engagement, this was only a slight increase of 3%, but I did just want to remind you, because this is one of our newer funds, and just to encourage the residents to take part. So I just listed here a lot of the initiatives that go on throughout the year. So we have our youth programming, senior programming. I'm sure everyone has been receiving newsworthy newsletter. The Maywood Fest, community events and sponsorships. So here is just giving a quick overview of what those community events are. We're keeping in mind, everyone throughout the village, so there's something for everyone. The village sponsors a few things, as the mayor mentioned earlier. This weekend, we'll have our day. Employees kind of, said, hey, what about me? Can you acknowledge us a little bit? So that's here, as well as the annual tour de Proviso, and this is a bike tour that's with the surrounding communities. So again, here I mentioned that code did show an increase over 10%, and it was 27%. And that is resulting from the new position that's proposed. And so with that new position, there's a vehicle that's proposed and equipment. The vehicle is in your binders. I did kind of go old school, and made sure that you did have your binders with a breakdown of every cent to the penny. Long utility vehicle that greatest increase, and this is a result of, again, a proposed new hire, a superintendent and a laborer. And then the building maintenance, that 136 is for every building in the village. Each department, as the manager said, we met and they gave their account of what the maintenance needs were for their particular building. So when we met with the police, he outlined everything that he thought that this building needed, as well as fire, and we just combined them all in public works. So that's why you see that big increase, but it isn't specifically just the public works. We're just putting every repairs and that. So that's what's represented here with the vehicle maintenance as well. So some of the major contractual and professional services that you see that represent $789,000 are our tree service. There's a lot of dead trees. We did get a lot, as you know, that we had, that you approved some emergency tree removals this year. So we have a little bit more, very little alley grading, and you can take a look at the rest of the items that are indicated here. Capital projects, we have Connor Heights, I hope I spelled that right. So we do have phase 1, and in that budget, we allocated $250,000 towards phase 1. The manager at another some other things in the park totality, but phase 1 should take care of the basketball court, and then we'll move on to, I guess, beautifying and taking a know, that needs to go up, so, the manager does have a plan for that. The ADA transition plan, I'm not sure where you are, of our compliance. So, there is a plan to be more compliant, and that's to make sure that, every curb is cut properly for the disabled. And so that's something that's in there, and the main one is 19th Avenue, Madison Dunkel. That's the biggest project, for the upcoming fiscal year. That is exposed. So then our next fund is the motor fuel. This actually decreased, by $1.8 million. And then the recreation fund stayed flat. Then we had some federal grants. We have our COPS hiring grant, expended. And then this RTA, access to transit grant, 44. So again, just to recap, we received close to $3.2 million in ARPA funds, and we had to have it budgeted, which we did last fiscal year, well, the current fiscal year, and then it has to be expended by December of next year. So these are the remaining items that we did not get a chance to address that we're carrying forward, which is our security camera program, homeowners improvement, which we're starting to work on, but we have not expended those dollars that were allocated. There's a few other initiatives and programs, and potentially the ceasefire, the previous ceasefire building. And again, these are just, the fiscal year ends April 30th, so we have not reconciled, but it's proposed to be about $627,000 of that approximate $3.2 million. The water fund, there was an increase here of about $2.3 million, and a lot of that is coming from, it's being appropriated from this year's budget to next. And the main culprits for this $2 million increase is the improvements from 19th Avenue, Madison to Oak. So that's in lieu with the road work, and then this will be the infrastructure for that same length of roadway. And then there are some other things that are listed here as to indicate why that budget is proposed as is. So then we have our Madison TIF. There was a $2.4 million, and then some other things that are listed here. We did keep in the business improvement program and our curb appeal pilot program as we're trying to get those Fifth Avenue corridors in Roosevelt. We're trying to get the business owners, to stay involved and to improve their locations. Roosevelt Road is, there was an increase here. And it was also the result of some infrastructure work, some property acquisitions, again, business improvement and a curb appeal pilot. The 2025 commercial parking and roadway improvements, I failed to list that here. It was $369,000. County ARPA grant that they had given us, it was $479,000, and so the $297,251 is what's remaining of that state grant. Any questions? So before I entertain those, if the mayor will allow, again, I want to make sure that you have in your binder the breakdown of each line item. So if there's still questions after reviewing those, then I should be able to assist.
Yeah, I just want to say one, thank you for going into such detail in regards to the budget. One of the biggest focuses has been even nearly $500,000 is because of the service and the work that's being done internal. So when you see funding going up for internal work being done, it's because we're not outsourcing as much work as we used to, because we were able to buy different pieces of equipment like the bucket truck or different trainings that staff didn't have, that we're able to get them now so that we don't have to pay for third services. But again, I just want to thank you all for taking your time to put this budget together to be able to review tonight.
Director Satchel, this working capital reserve fund, we did put money into that, correct? So
Yes, we did.
We are saving for a rainy day?
We will be back to our $2 million. We'll actually be slightly over with some interest, because we have been receiving interest, but we will be fully funded for $2 million.
So even with all we have, we are still saving money. Just want to point that out.
Thank you. Trustee Jones.
Thank you for all the work that you did to, put into this budget. I want to say a couple high-level comments before I kind of go into like some specific questions. Or actually, no, let me leave